Believe it. Today, I'm super excited. I get to have a guest join me, and we're talking about something that you've seen. If you've been paying attention to ServiceNow, you start to see us move kind of across industries, across the marketplace, and realize that our customers are very specific in industries. And I have one of our industry leads with me today. So, John, thanks for joining. John Dougherty, if you just give us a little intro, tell us about your role and really how you're involved with ServiceNow in our clients here.
Yeah, excellent. Troy, very excited to join you. I know we've talked about this. We started back around shortly after Christmas talking about this, but thanks again for the opportunity to do this. And like you mentioned, my role here at ServiceNow is a fantastic role. I'm the director of manufacturing and supply chain, one of our verticals here, and I handle all of our accounts in the Western United States and also Latin America. And I have a counterpart, Joe Maroney. He also handles the Eastern United States and Canada for us. So from that perspective.
Yes. Very, very cool. And as we're talking about this, like you said, it's been a time coming for us to get on this.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really wanted to get your thoughts on as you get a chance to talk with our different customers across this manufacturing vertical, I always like to start with why. Simon Sinek has really made that why stand out. And I've worked with others where it's like, ask why and continue asking until you ask why 5 times. And so my why question for you is, why are you really seeing in the manufacturing vertical that customers are turning to us, ServiceNow, to really improve the world of work for them?
Yeah, there's some real big issues out there, Troy, that folks are really turning to us to help solve, and that's why the phone is ringing off the hook nonstop. And I'll sort of summarize those for you. Like I think one of the biggest issues coming out of the pandemic that folks are dealing with, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but is just sort of not only bringing on new employees, but also, reskilling those employees or retaining those employees they have on board. I mean, I've gone to a ton of conferences, this year alone, even last year. And believe it or not, that is still the number one issue across the board, is just retaining those employees on board. Just onboarding employees, Troy, is a monumental task. And I'll tell you the reason why. A lot of these companies are taking advantage of, what is going on within the economy to now sort of digital, transform their businesses. So they haven't slowed down, even though, potentially the business has slowed down. A lot of these companies have not slowed down. So they're viewing this as, a great opportunity to transform their businesses in this slow period. So when we start to hit the next bull market, these folks are ready to go. So, so that's one of the big issues. And then a couple other issues. Well, we're still seeing.
Let me stop you there. I want to
no worries.
Spend some time on that, John.
Yeah.
I hear you kind of talking about that talent gap that we're seeing, and we hear that change. And I know for me, I've heard people say, man, change is constant. And I said, that's absolutely not true. Change is accelerating. It's exponential.
Yeah.
Within ServiceNow, we've had this really push called Rise Up to look at how can we help our customers build that kind of learning environment and really equip not only on our platform, including some of our partners as well. How are you seeing, that effort and focus on Rise Up, and whether that's some of the training built in our Impact product or other things, but how are you seeing us lean into that, both equipping staff, but also nurturing that environment so we're seeing employee retention go up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you, Troy, this Rise Up program is fantastic from a standpoint of, and we're very well positioned. And I'll tell you the reason why we're very well positioned. If you just take a look at some of the really cool things that we can do across our platform, like, I'll give you a great example. Like, look at just our creator workflows and our app engine. You do not have to be a developer to develop an app and get it up and running. I mean, right. You and I come from the world of our Oracle, our SAP days. I mean, those old days of moving like a dinosaur to, if you wanted to design a application or a workflow, you literally had to get someone involved from, that knew the code, that not only knew the code, but knew the business process. Well, this Rise Up program is empowering folks, based upon what the cool tools we have on the platform, to teach them that you don't have to be a coder. You didn't have to go to school to, have a supply chain degree. I mean, we have the tool sets in place to empower you to, do great work at a company and be very impactful very quickly. That's the real value statement here.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's that continuum. I often draw it on the screen. Is in this one, the continuum is those people that feel the pain of that business problem.
Yes.
That aren't coders, but know the process in their head. They've found a way to flesh it out, but they need something. They need a trusted system that can say, I need to do this activity. I need this review and approval. It needs to go to someone else, right? That they have that traceability of that workflow.
Yeah.
And our App Studio helps them just drag that in. But this continuum goes all the way over to here to people that might be like me, that can program in more languages that we're willing to admit.
Absolutely.
That want to be that pro code and enable those low code or citizen developers, as we used to call them, right? That there's a continuum and rise up of where are you on this?
Yeah.
How can we help you kind of skill up to take that to the next level and really stay with that accelerated change?
Yeah. And the last comment I'll make about this, it's no surprise that the labor pool for coders and developers has shrunk over the past few years. And because a lot of those folks are, they're long in the tooth and they're moving on to other, parts of their life that they view as more important. So, the big Rise Up program is how do we go out and look at different areas of the market space and attract people into that sort of industry that may have not felt like they had that skill set to sort of, do that type of work. So, I mean, it's a tremendous program, hands down.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right, let's transition to the next one. I
Yeah.
know, specific in manufacturing, if you haven't been hiding under a rock, you've seen the cyber attacks. And cyber attacks aren't just, there's a number of different things they're really on the forefront of social, but on the manufacturing, we're seeing attacks going at really operational technology that are shutting down, the revenue streams for manufacturing companies.
Yeah.
How do you see ServiceNow playing in and staying ahead of that and helping really accelerate the speed that we respond to those security incidents, be aware of it, and really step into that need in cyber around OT?
Yeah, Troy, there's a very interesting statistic that some folks may be aware of, they may not be aware of, but late in 2021, heading into 2022, the manufacturing industry was the 9th or 10th most cyber attacked industry, right? So that has dramatically changed for whatever reason. There's geopolitical reasons, there's other reasons for this, but the manufacturing industry has now shot up to the #1 most cyber attacked industry in the world across the board. So you have a lot of folks that are sitting out there.
That's a big movement in that stat from 9
it's
to
huge. I mean, do not underestimate what a movement that is and what the amount of money that's involved. I mean, across the board with this.
Yeah, it's frightening.
It is. It's absolutely frightening. I'll tell you what's keeping a lot of, CIOs, CISOs up every single night is that phone call at 4:00 in the morning saying we had a cyber attack or we had an intrusion and we don't know where it's coming from or what's the effect. And that's the big value statement that we're providing is from a ServiceNow perspective is we're going out and we're meeting with customers and we're saying, look, let's give you visibility to your operational technology networks. What's the environment look like? What's the landscape look like? So, we're giving them a service map of all their assets. And that's what folks that's a big piece that they're missing as currently is they don't have visibility even to where their assets are today, believe it or not, from that perspective. And the other pieces that we're doing is just proactively helping them manage the vulnerabilities, and then also if they do have a cyber attack, ransomware attack, how do we mitigate the amount of time that they're down from that perspective? So those are our key value statements, managing visibility or giving them visibility, managing the vulnerability piece, and then also, giving them tools. If something does happen, how do we mitigate the effects on the business?
Yeah, that's great stuff. Let me poke at that just a little bit more, and so we can talk a little bit further. I've spent some time in the manufacturing industry, both as an early engineer doing some industrial automation. And one of the things I know is when you're steep in ServiceNow, we talk about our CMDB, our configuration management database. It's where we, from the birth of our organization, we said, where are we going to store all our IT assets?
Yeah.
It was architected in a way that we could go, kind of across the enterprise. as we start putting operational tech in there, would you spend some time talking about the framework, the kind of layers of framework that we're putting that operational technology, as you can say, those assets, as we put that in, that it's not just, it's in our CMDB, but it's in this different framework. Can you touch on that just a little bit, right? So that we understand we're not just trying to horseshoe in or shoehorn in OT into that same CMDB. We've created in a structure that really aligns with the mindset and the thinking of the manufacturing industry.
Yeah, Troy, that's a fantastic point you make, because let me sort of build upon that and tell you what we've had a few customers try to do, and then they very quickly understand that it's a path to ruin. We've had quite a few customers try to utilize, like utilizing ITSM or ITOM to sort of, shoehorn that into their OT environment or try to handle their OT environment. And what we've done is we've gone to great lengths with the product to build out the CMDB to account for those operational assets, which have different attributes than your IT assets. So, that's the big piece. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting for the customers. We've thought through this methodically about how do we build out the CMDB to account for those different attributes. How do we go through the reconciliation process? You might have an asset that's identified as an IT asset, an OT asset. And, when we go out and do the scan and we bring them into the CMDB, how do we recognize that, or do that reconciliation process of, it's identified as an IT asset versus an OT asset, versus two entries in the CMDB is the point I'm trying to make here. So we've gone through great lengths to sort of think about this. And like I mentioned, we've had quite a few customers that said, hey, I'm going to try to save a buck and, try to use these tools that are not appropriate for the OT, managing the OT environment. And they very quickly pivot back to us and say, hey, you were right. Let's start to do it on the OT side and use the tools you have.
Yeah, indeed. And so, again, for our customers or people that are looking at that OT threat and thinking of that 4 a.m. call, what I hear you really talking about is we're helping them get that kind of out of, I know in my head what's on my manufacturing floor.
Yeah.
To, I got it on a whiteboard, so I got it in some spreadsheets too. Let's get it into a trusted system.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that operational visibility. Now, if you will, touch on how have we used our security operations in some of our IRM, so both SecOps and integrated risk management, to help them really stay kind of ahead of and even manage at the corporate risk level, that cyber risk in OT.
Yeah, that's another great point, Troy. We talk about or tell all of our customers that, hey, a good starting point is get visibility to those assets. Make sure that your CMDB is clean and those assets are, those operational assets are going to the CMDB. So we don't even allow our customers to jump ahead on the spectrum to where you're going with the SecOps piece and the IRM piece unless they have a good foundation to, I like to call their operational technology house, right? You get the house in order.
Crawl, walk, run, fly, right?
Exactly. You're not building the house with, you're not starting on the second floor of the house or starting the third floor without a good foundation, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's the big thing we're trying to put in place. But, the next big area that concerns a lot of folks is that security piece, because this has major ramifications across the industry or across their business. Like, for instance, if one of those operational technology assets fail and someone gets injured, now it becomes a legal problem. It becomes an HR problem. So, you're now introducing risk across the business. So our IRM product is great at identifying those risk areas. And, SecOps make sure that, hey, we have a good security protocols in place, not only for your IT assets, but also your OT assets. So again, it's mitigating that risk profile from that perspective of, hey, for instance, if someone hacks into your system and, again, someone gets injured by someone hacking in, again, you're mitigating your risk profile.
Indeed. Let's transition. We're coming up on time, but I want to make sure that we have time to talk about one other topic. We said there are kind of three things. We talked about the talent gap and rise up and some ways that we're seeing some change there. We talked about OT and cyber, but I want to spend some more time. You brought it up when you talked about your role, and that's really looking at supply chain. Over the last year, maybe 2 years, we've seen such dramatic swings in what supply chain is, from, when the pandemic first started, to I can't find toilet paper, to on and on and on, right? We've seen so many things that are
Yeah.
supply chains. I can't get chips. There's a ship stuck. So many things that we haven't wrestled with before. How are our customers leveraging ServiceNow to understand their supply chain, to get those early warnings and help manage and mitigate risk?
Yeah, Troy, there's a couple things that we're doing very well for our customers, and there are some very uh, uh, visible common denominators across the board. I'll tell you the one biggest common denominator that a lot of folks are calling us about is just getting visibility to that individual supply chain. Where is the vulnerabilities within their supply chain? Because I'll tell you what, everybody I talk to, they don't know where the next shoe is going to drop, or what, like you sort of make the joke about, being out of toilet paper. I mean, there's not a day that goes by at I go to the grocery store. I'm like, okay, what's going to be, we going to run out of next, right? We've gone
Yeah.
toilet paper to baby formula. Like, it's just absolutely crazy across the board. And that's the thing that, CEOs are worried about. They've been through the wars and the battles over 20 years, but what's scaring them is, it's like, what's the thing that I never even thought about that's going to happen tomorrow across the board? So,
Right.
what they're doing is they're coming to us and saying, hey, what's the things that I need that I'm not thinking about, that I should be thinking about, and how to approach those individual items. So
Right.
it's really giving them visibility. But then the other big thing that we're doing is, we're taking snapshots through digital twins of their supply chain, and we're stress testing them. So we're doing, like wargaming or scenario simulations, and saying, hey, this is where, potentially you're going to see breaks in the action. And we also have our process optimization tools. So we're applying them to their supply chain processes and telling them where it's broken or they can do a better job. So there's a ton of stuff that we're doing. And the last thing I want to sort of make mention of just really quickly is, we're applying also AI algorithms to these incident or case management records are coming off of not only through the supply chain feeds, but also through production. So, if you get over 100 incidents a day, which is a very realistic possibility out of production or supply chain, what's your top 5 incidents that you need to worry about? And we're applying those AI algorithms to take a look at that information and sort it for you. So, again, it's making sure that when you walk in, you're working on the 5 most critical items that are going to affect your business that day.
It's I'll focus on those 2 letters that you mentioned, but we're not going to spend time talking about it because we don't have time.
Yeah.
But artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
that it's been something that we've been leveraging on the platform. We have both machine learning and AI and predictive intelligence, a whole number of capabilities that have been on our platform and continue to grow. We're seeing at Knowledge so many announcements about generative AI and just the growth of that. And I think what I will just kind of focus on just for our time is that that we're intentional about understanding the talent gap, understanding how the speed that we respond to those cyber and OT threats, as well as the things that you're seeing in our supply chain. We need that artificial intelligence to be able to guide and inform the people that are working in our clients' environments to do the best work. And so AI is going to be a continued focus in that accelerated change we're all experiencing, right?
Yeah.
But let me say this, we got a couple minutes left. Of course, I'm a service account executive, part of our customer outcomes organization in the West. And so, I help customers as they look at trying to wrestle with these problems and figure out how they get the most value out of ServiceNow. And so, of course, anyone watching can reach out to me to learn more about that. But what are some good reasons and good times for them to reach out to you?
I would just much like what you just said, if someone is struggling with where do I start on the spectrum of a digital transformation, that's a great area to sort of reach out from a customer's perspective. Internally, like, a lot of our folks reach out to me and say, hey, I don't know how to approach this account, or what are the industry challenges, much like everything we talked about today. Like, what are the big ticket items when I go in and talk to a CEO or a CISO? What's going to be top of mind? So we have
Right.
those relevant conversations. So, that's the big piece that I get pulled into. 80-90% of my day is talking to customers or talking to, folks like you, or our internal folks.
Yeah. I appreciate that perspective, John, because just like you said, you get to spend the bulk of your day talking with our customers and hearing their pains, but also seeing how we at ServiceNow are using the world of work and with workflows, helping that flow of work better.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the time today. On both LinkedIn and on YouTube, you can find this stream, and in the show notes or in the comments behind it, the descriptions, you'll see a LinkedIn profile for both John and I. If we're not connected, reach out with a connection request, and don't hesitate to reach out. I'm easy to find on social media and other places. So if you want some help, reach out to me. Glad to connect you with someone if I can't help you directly. So John, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Troy. This was awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.